AMD has just released the information on their 6000 series or Big Navi graphics cards. Let's check out the highlights. Hey everyone, Danny here with DTC. Welcome to the channel. If it's your first time, I frequently do hardware reviews, PC builds, and sometimes how-to videos. But lately, I've been giving information about some of the upcoming releases that are happening. And if you are a PC enthusiast like myself, I'm sure you've heard about AMD's Big Navi announcement that just released today. I'm giving you the highlights right now. Let's take a look at them. AMD just had a press conference today about their upcoming 6000 series graphics cards. The three cards that they released today are the RX 6800, the RX 6800 XT, and the RX 6900 XT. These cards are direct competition for NVIDIA's new 3000 series cards they came out with, like the 3080 and the 3070. If you take a look at the nice little chart that I've made up here, this is AMD's slogan, where gaming begins. This is their thing. The three cards that they released here, the first one they released was the 6800 XT, but I decided to put it in the order of performance. So as you can see, the 6800 has 60 compute units that runs at a game clock, which AMD has deemed, I guess that's a normal company like NVIDIA's boost clock, but it runs at 1815 megahertz, and then their boost clock is 2105 megahertz. The 6800 XT is 2015 megahertz and 2250 megahertz, and then the 6900 XT is the same as the 6800 XT. If you look at the chart here, there's really not a whole lot of differences between the 68 and the 6900. I think they just pushed more compute units, obviously you can see that, into the card, and that gave them a little bit bump in performance to try to compete with the 3090. All three cards share the same 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. They have a 128 megabyte Infinity cache. You've got a 250 watt card in the 6800, you have a 300 watt card in the 6800 XT and the 6900. These prices come in obviously shown on the chart here, $579 for the 6800, $649 for the 6800 XT, and $999 for the 6900 XT. The 6800 XT actually comes in at $50 cheaper than the 3080. The 6800 though comes in $80 higher than the 3070. I'm interested to see how this is going to play out. I think that most people are going to be shopping for a 3070 or a 6800. If you're jumping into the 6800 XT category, $650 is not cheap for a graphics card. So to pair it with everything, you're looking at a $1,500 to $1,800 computer when you put all of the comparable parts in and stuff like that. I don't think that's reasonable for most people, but I guess if you have the money, you have the money. The RX 6800 and the RX 6800 XT are scheduled for release on November 18th. The RX 6900 XT is not scheduled till December 8th. I know it is a little bit of waiting, but believe it or not, we're at the end of October right now, so in 2 weeks or so, they're gonna be releasing and shipping out all over the place. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. AMD's releases are kind of stacking up very well together. Let's take a look at some of the benchmarks that AMD is putting out there. Now, this is AMD showing their own benchmarks. So every company is the same way. NVIDIA does the same thing. Their bar graphs are going to show more in favor of AMD, obviously, because it's their performance. They're even showing on games that they would be optimized for. So take it with a grain of salt. Wait until third-party reviews come out if you're really serious about getting something and you want the best performance for your dollar. But first up was the RX 6800. They showed games such as Battlefield 5, Doom Eternal, Forza Horizon 4, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. There's plenty of stuff on here. This is at 4K 60 FPS. It's good performance. It's showing that it's beating the 2080 Ti, which if you watched NVIDIA's recent release of the 3070 information, the 2080 Ti and the 3070 are pretty close to on par with each other. There's a lot of third-party reviewers, some of the other content creators that have gotten 3070s already, they have benchmark numbers in there, and you can see they compare to 2080 Ti's all day. So that can kind of give you a rough idea of how this looks in comparison. But the 3070 is beating the 2080 Ti in every category, so I'm sure it's going to trade blows with a 3070. Now, you got to take into account the 3070 is $50 less than a 6800. And you can see this smart access memory down at the corner here. Pay attention to that because I'm going to give you some information in a little bit that might be interesting to you. Next up is the 6800 XT. The 6800 XT was compared to the 3080, obviously, as that's its direct competitor. Now, I couldn't get a snapshot of their 4K gaming performance. They didn't really display it in this nice fashion. They kind of like sweeped around as they were moving the camera, so they got me on that one. But the 1440p performance is very good. It's showing higher in almost every game. I mean, they trade blows. Division 2 they didn't do as well. In Resident Evil, they just missed it by the bar. This is very interesting because the card is basically the same price as a 3080. Actually, it's $50 cheaper, I forgot. $50 cheaper than a 3080, and it's got equal to or better performance in almost every game. Then moving on to the 6900 XT, in comparison to the 3090, obviously, they're showing better gaming performance in almost every category than the 3090. But you're talking for $500 less than a 3090. And the question on everybody's mind, I'm sure, is are we going to be able to get a hold of these cards? That's an excellent question, which I do not have an answer for. I think that AMD is going to do a better job with stock than NVIDIA. I mean, you can't do worse, right? Now, something else AMD talked about in this press conference is something they call smart access memory. I hinted to it a minute ago. This last chart, actually, the RX 6900 XT, they had smart access memory and what they're calling rage mode enabled for these tests. I don't know why they wouldn't have enabled that for all their tests, because if you look at the 6800 XT, it doesn't show anything was enabled, so I'm assuming that was just flat performance out of the box. And if you look at the 6800 chart, it shows that the smart access memory was enabled. It doesn't show rage mode, but it shows smart access memory, or SAM, as I'm going to be calling it. What AMD is marketing with this is that if you have their newest AMD graphics card and the newest Ryzen 5000 processors, or Zen 3, you'll be able to extract more performance out of your computer when gaming. If you look at one of their charts here, they have a little putting it all together type of thing that is marketing this idea of buying an AMD CPU and an AMD graphics card to produce better performance. And I guess it does. I mean, I can't wait to test this though. They're showing across the board anywhere from a 2% all the way up to a 13% increase by using the smart access memory and the rage mode. Now, this is on the 6800 XT. I don't know if the 6900 is going to get better performance. You never know. But they compared it to the 3080, and they showed the bump in performance when enabling these two things. But you have to have a Ryzen 5000 CPU and one of the new RX 6000 series graphics cards. If you have a Ryzen 3000 CPU, it's time to upgrade. So it's really a genius marketing on AMD's point, because then it kind of forces you, like, get their processor and get their graphics card. You get better performance. It's a no-brainer. Now, one thing that I think may be a hindrance, first of all, last time AMD had a release, the RX 5700 series, they had driver issues. This is going to be an interesting side caveat on this, that I want to see how the drivers turn out this year, because they have improved them as the 5700 series has been out, but you never know with a new GPU release. It could fall or it could fly. The information I'm giving to you is even more fresh than what AMD is publishing on their site. But this is everything I've gathered from their keynote, so I'm passing it on to you in a quick nutshell. Another thing that they hinted at in the video that I thought was interesting, and it was at the very beginning, but if you were watching it, it was during their GPU roadmap, architecture roadmap display. You can see at the end there, it says RDNA 3, which is in design and testing right now and stuff. And then it shows 2022 on the edge of their roadmap here. So either that means by the beginning or end of 2022, we can assume that we're going to see RDNA 3. It's kind of exciting that they're going to try to stay consistent and throw these things out there, all constantly coming out with new technologies. Final thoughts of all this, final wrap up of everything, just a quick synopsis. AMD brought a great set of graphics cards to the table, it looks like. I think all three of them can be very competitive, and AMD is known for dropping prices on everything. So maybe after the holidays and everything like that, when beginning of the year comes around and stock starts to come in, these cards may drop in price, and that would make these things killer. If you could pick up a 6800 for less than $500 and it beats a 3070, oh boy. AMD seems to be cheaper on the high end, but a little bit more expensive on the mid-range cards like the RX 6800. I mean, overall, it's pretty competitive. If you're going to charge less for the high-end GPUs and more for the low-end, you have a pretty good product stacked. Another great selling feature for AMD is that their VRAM is more. I know I didn't talk about it much, but they have double the VRAM of a 3070. They've got 16 gigabytes in their 6800. The 6800 XT has 16 gigabytes. We saw when the RX 580 and 570s came out, they had the 4 and the 8 gigabyte VRAM models. The 8 gigabyte VRAM really didn't take effect and really shine until later on in the run. So that's something to keep an eye out for, is maybe these game developers will start using more VRAM. If your 3070 has 8 gigs of VRAM, you may start to struggle where AMD can finally stretch its legs. But that's pretty much all I got to wrap up on this. I just wanted to get the nice little graph I made out there so you can take a look at that and kind of compare right next to each other what you're looking at. So you've got everything lining up perfectly. You've got the new CPUs coming out November 5th. You've got their new GPUs starting to roll out November 18th. If you're thinking about doing this upgrade, you want to grab these things, I would pick up the motherboard now. If you don't already have a B550 or an X570 board, they are probably going to start selling out at the end of the year because people are going to start getting the processor and the graphics card, and they're going to be like, I need the new motherboard too. Pick that up, throw it in the cart. That's something to keep an eye out for. Like I said before, if this is your first time here and you stayed all the way to the end, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe down below so you can see more content just like this, whether you're an AMD fan, an Intel fan, or an NVIDIA fan. I try to talk about all of it. So I appreciate you stopping by, and I'll see you in the next video. Doors unlocked.